Welcome to Emotion Ships, where we talk about the real reason everything happens for a reason. I am your host, Charlie Carroll, along with my conscientious co-host, Mallory Redmond. Told you I was going to make it.
Oh, that's good. Do you remember in like the 90s when Rosie O'Donnell had a talk show? I'm going somewhere with this.
Briefly, yes.
I think it was every show, she would have, her desk would be made out of different like materials, like Legos was one show. Every day her desk was different.
Interesting.
And so I was thinking about that because I was anticipating you were going to introduce me differently, and it made me think of Rosie O'Donnell's different desk. And I would always tune in just to see what her desk looked like. Everybody Google that. Google Rosie O'Donnell's desk.
That's really interesting.
Maybe people will tune in just to hear how you introduce me.
I do not remember the desk part.
Oh. It was fun.
Yeah, I remember her trying to get into having her own show.
Yeah,
but
she did. She did have her own show.
Yes, welcome to everyone that is joining us via video, whether that is on emotionships.com or LinkedIn or YouTube or the other wonderful places you can find us these days.
Wherever you find us.
It looks like you're feeling better. You were under the weather, for those that do not know.
I'm fine.
Well, having young children, it was this way for us too. That
was it?
Yes.
It feels like it's never going to end.
Not quite as drastic as what you guys have been through, but
yeah,
you appear to be on the upside.
I'm coming out of it. I had a double ear infection, but
yeah, you did, not your children.
Yes, I had that as an adult. I feel like ear infections are not like very common amongst adults. But what was really exciting is each ear had a different type of infection. Isn't that impressive?
How does that happen?
They were in different places in each ear.
I don't know that I've heard that.
Yeah, I haven't. For sure have
Did
not.
you get the yummy pink medicine? That's all I remember.
No.
Right? No?
No, I got normal adult medicine.
Isn't that penicillin? Or what is that? I don't remember.
Amoxicillin?
Oh, there you go. What's penicillin?
I don't know.
Well.
I feel like we should know.
I don't know the last time I was on an antibiotic.
Yeah, I know. I know that about you.
Yeah, so it's.
I couldn't ride it out. I was sick. I was very sick.
Yeah. Well, at least you're feeling better.
Yes, I'm getting there. Thank you.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm good. I am on the eve of going out of town tomorrow and just getting back.
Your wild life.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, you were in Florida.
I was.
Was that last week? I can't even remember.
It was this past week,
okay.
Yes. I was in a golf tournament, which I do not do.
What do you mean? You don't do tournaments?
No, I mean, I play in little games and tournaments here at our home course, but I don't travel to play golf that often. One of the things that I'm using golf for these days is to practice being present. Traditionally speaking, if I have something on my mind or something going on, like a big responsibility that needs to be completed, I don't golf well. And therefore, I've learned not to golf when I have things on my mind.
Interesting.
And so now, if I continue with that path, I won't play golf as much as I want to. So now I'm practicing being present and totally being there wherever I am when I'm there.
Yeah.
Not just with golf, but to include golf.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. And so it was cool.
I need to practice being present in a place that requires me to be in warm weather.
Yeah.
That's the wise thing about choosing golf as your thing.
Well, the crazy thing about it is, I mean, yes, you're right. You
Thank you.
need to be in a warm place, especially in the winter months of Ohio.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is, for me, is I say to people, like, I enjoy it once I get there, but I don't look forward to it in the sense of I find it to be heaven, because I take my responsibilities seriously, like work-wise, and I really enjoy them. I don't feel like I work, and so sometimes to get away for a day seems just like too much, that I just rather stay home. I rather be with my family.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
I rather continue to take things off of my list.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I do commit to something, which typically that's the way it works, I commit to it in advance, and then the day comes and it's like, oh gosh, man, why did I do this?
Yes, and the golf tournament's probably not going to cancel on you.
No. But I'm learning to be present.
So why do you
And-
do this one? Why do you do it if you don't do tournaments?
Well,
what's special about this one?
It was sponsored by Omega, the watch company, and so I have a couple of Omega watches and have a good relationship with a boutique down in Southern Florida.
Nice.
And they invited me to play, and believe it or not, me along with 2 other fellows won the tournament.
Hit the.
There we go.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, if you're watching via video, you can see that I have all of these colored buttons in front of me.
I'm surprised you knew that was the applause.
Well, I know that the yellow is applause. Like, I don't know what green is, but we're going to hit it.
Oh. That would have been the wrong one.
Right. Don't want to do that. But we won the tournament.
So why? So other people played in the tournament?
Yes, there was about, I would guess, 50 to 60 people, maybe.
No way.
Yeah, and we won. We won by a stroke.
Did you know, like, at what point did you know we could win this?
No, that's exactly what my mom was asking me, right? Mothers want to know when they hear that their children are winners. They want to know the details. And the thing about golf is, you don't pay attention to that because it can be a distraction. It can get you tense, and it can get you trying too hard, and trying really hard at golf tends to make things more difficult.
Yeah, it doesn't work out.
I did sense that we went on a little streak on the back 9, and I did feel like we were getting close. And so my creative juices decided to make a little side bet with my 2 teammates to try to like motivate one another, which was a really, really fun story. And they'll be listening to this and think probably that I told the story just because it worked out for me.
Oh.
But it was really fun.
We're all thinking that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well,
it's your podcast, man.
Right. Just
do what you
tell
want.
the story. So we are getting close, and we have reached a green in 2, which is a par 5. And so now we have an eagle.
Nothing that you're saying makes sense to me.
Well,
go ahead.
The golfers will get it.
Yeah, that's
but
good.
We have an opportunity for an eagle, which is make a long putt, and you get down in 3, which means you pick up 2 strokes for the tournament. And it's getting toward the back half of the tournament, which means you need to move. You need to start scoring.
Mm-hmm.
And so both of my teammates putted first and came up short. And this is like a 40 to 45 foot putt, which is a long putt, and it's downhill and it breaks to the right. So I said to one of my teammates, like, I'll tell you what, I will pay you $50 if I miss this putt. But if I make it, you give me $500.
Which is that's a big gap.
It's a huge gap, but the odds were, I don't know what, like officially what the odds would have been, but it is very, I mean, even if Tiger Woods or another PGA golfer was standing over this putt, 45 feet downhill, breaking to the right, the odds are not great for whoever is putting.
Okay.
And so to keep the tournament fair, they assign a caddy to each group. And so the teammate that I said this to says, "Oh yeah, I'm in. I'll take those odds." And he says to my other teammate, "Do you want in? Do you want to split this?" And he says, "Yeah, absolutely." And then my caddy or our caddy says, "Well, I want in on this because it's pretty much a done deal that I'm going to give them money because of how difficult the putt is." And so I stood over the putt. The idea with a putt really like this is don't overthink it and don't get tense.
Okay.
Just find your line and then let it go. Try to find the right speed for it. And sure enough, I found my line. I let it go. And as soon as it left my putter, the caddy who caddies there regularly says, "Uh-oh, this could be good."
No way.
And
did you feel that as like when you hit it?
I hit it the way I wanted to, which we could do a whole podcast out of your best being good enough, right? That you can't always predict or control the things in your life or the situations in your life. And when I was pursuing soccer as an occupation, we had a sports therapist that used to say to us, attitude, concentration, and effort, those are the only 3 things you get to control as a professional athlete. And so with that being said, attitude, concentration, and effort, I knew that I hit it the way I wanted to, which means right line, right speed. And so then we just watched. We had 5 to 6 seconds to watch this ball start going down the hill and slowly, swerving in toward the right. And I don't know if you've ever seen it before. You can go to YouTube and find it. There's a Tiger Woods Nike commercial where he's playing with a Nike golf ball in the Masters. I think it's the 97 Masters. And his first shot on this par 3 over water goes over the green, and it's sitting down in the heavy stuff. And he chips it up. But the things about the greens at Augusta is that they have so much slant to them that he hits it up on the top of the hill, and then it slowly starts rolling down toward the putt. And right before it falls in, it rolls over so you see the Nike logo, and it pauses for a second before dropping in to the cup. And Nike made a whole commercial about it.
Of course.
And literally that is what happened. Here's this impossible 45 foot putt, starts moving slowly down the hill, breaking to the right, gets right to the right of the cup, pauses for a brief second, and falls in.
Yes, we are looking for sponsorships.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody.
Oh, yeah. So I give this big, probably the biggest shout I've ever.
Yeah, what do you do? I mean,
Well, I gave the Tiger Woods fist pump.
Of course.
I mean, I've been wanting to do that my whole life.
Yeah.
Give the big old Tiger Woods fist pump and scream. I'm sure people thought I was crazy.
Now, are people watching this tournament?
Not.
There's spectators?
No,
Oh, that's
not really.
unfortunate.
There's other golfers out there, and I turn around after I give this big adrenaline shout.
Yes.
And my caddy has taken his hat off his head and thrown it on the floor. And both of my teammates are hunched over with their hands on their knees. It was a beautiful sight.
I mean, they owed you a lot of money, but it worked in your favor
Well, it
as
did.
a team.
Yeah, it did. It did. We won by a stroke. We got 2 strokes on that hole. I did not win it for us. We all contributed to the tournament and won. But
yeah, we know.
yes, it was quite the day, which if you go to my Instagram account and look at the pictures, I have pictures moving through.
You were very subtle about your win.
Well, it was a fun memory, and I'm going to capture it.
Yeah, sure.
Well, everybody.
He got a big old trophy.
Yeah, it is big, and it's nice, and it's heavy. They did not take any shortcuts with it.
Good.
And so I'm moving through the airport, and literally people are stopping us everywhere.
Sure.
Just wanting to hear the story. Some people are.
Did you tell them the story you just told us?
No.
Okay.
No. Some people are taking pictures with it.
Wow.
I think there's an emotion ship there, right? An emotion ship is our emotional relationship to all of our other relationships in life. And so there is definitely an emotional relationship to the idea of winning and losing.
Yeah.
And so when people see this big, heavy trophy, there's an emotional connection to that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a message that it says to them, we look like normal, average guys.
Yeah, you were flying with the normal folks.
Yeah.
You didn't charter a jet.
No.
Yes.
I told you that's a rare occasion.
Yeah.
And so that being said, I think people like seeing the trophy because they tell them that they too can be a winner and accomplish it for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But it was an absolute blast.
So when did you know that you won the whole tournament?
Oh, that's a really that's embarrassing, but it's a really good question. So we get done late, and we're staying there at the resort.
Okay.
And I had asked, so the golf course has a hotel, a resort attached to it. And I had asked for a late checkout, that we could get out late because you're supposed to be out by 10:30, and they said 12:30. Well, we finish at 1. So I tell the guys, there's a little banquet right afterwards, but I had done this 2 years prior, and we eat, and there's another contest, and people get their drinks, and it's a long ordeal. I said, I'm going to run back up to the room real quick and make sure they know we're just running behind so we don't get charged for another night or they don't wonder what happened. And so I do that, and about 15, 20 minutes later, I come back, and I walk into, this banquet room where they have the lunch set up, and Michael Michael Breed, who is he worked at Augusta. He was assistant pro at Augusta National, which is he's a cool guy. He had the golf fix on the Golf Channel for the longest time, teaching tips and instructions. And now he's doing his own thing, his own podcast and his own show. But he was there to present the trophy to the winners. And so I walk in and everybody is seated and everyone is eating. And one of the hosts from Omega walks toward me, puts a golf bag in my hands, and then hands me the trophy. And like my first thing was, is he being funny? And I said, what? And he goes, you won. And at that time I look up and there are my two teammates eating and laughing that right after I left, they got everyone's attention, had them sit down, have the president of North America for Omega and Michael Breed present the trophies to the winning team. And guess who's not there?
You missed it.
Yeah. So,
oh, what a bummer.
I mean, I don't know.
Do you want us to recreate it for you?
Yeah, would you do
I'll
that?
be Michael Breed.
Yeah, would you do that? Ladies and gentlemen, the winners. Charlie Carroll and his team. That easy, ladies and gentlemen.
That's good.
But yeah, so that was kind of how it went.
Wow.
But it was cool.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. It feels good to execute, because you don't always get to do that.
Yeah, I did not, there was not a thought in my mind. I knew you were playing in this tournament. I didn't think winning was even a slight possibility for you.
I did not.
And I thought, and so when you said you won, it took a very long time for me to be convinced that you weren't kidding.
Yeah. I mean, I did not go and do it because I thought that I could win it. We went down there to have fun, to enjoy ourselves, and to play a good round of golf on a difficult course.
Yeah, that's awesome.
The course is called Tiburon, and the PGA was there this past summer, which was really cool to play on a difficult course and to try it out and what have you.
Well done.
Yeah.
He's not just a podcaster, ladies and gentlemen.
No, an amateur golfer on the side.
Golf champion.
Yeah. Did you catch, by chance, changing subjects here, did you catch the memorial service yesterday for Kobe? I
caught bits and pieces of it, mostly what they've replayed.
Yeah.
I was not able to watch the whole thing live, but I will tell you that what I did catch made me cry. Especially, Vanessa, obviously.
Right.
You can't even imagine.
Yeah.
Memorializing both her husband and her daughter. But I loved seeing Michael Jordan.
Oh, yeah.
And I loved his joke about the crying meme.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. It was perfect.
I mean, how great was he?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Just standing up there, one of, if not the greatest of all time at his craft, having no shame as a man and no apologies for crying all over himself.
Yeah. I was thinking about it this morning. Something that I loved about seeing just the shots of the crowd of that memorial, and we might have talked about this earlier, but, I grew up a Chicago Bulls fan and very invested in basketball in the 90s. And so, there were all these intense rivalries and all of that. And I loved seeing how many of those guys were there all together. Like, it was just a very united thing. And they're all friends. I mean, only in my mind are they, arch enemies. But seeing these guys that had played together against each other during that era when I was growing up, all together, friends and grieving together and telling stories about one another. Like, it was a really beautiful thing to see. That it's bigger than basketball.
Yeah.
Bigger than different teams, bigger than all of that. Like, it seems to be a real family within professional sports.
Yeah. I had forgotten that it was yesterday, and I call Amy, my wife, and she's crying. Like, I can hear over the phone that she's crying. I said, "Are you okay?" And she said, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm watching this memorial service on, I guess my son had turned it on ESPN."
Mm-hmm.
And so I rewatched some of it last night, and what you're referring to, the sobriety that comes with watching someone who is 41, let alone 13, be taken home prematurely, it just kind of cuts through everything as to what is important in life. And that's what, MJ said, is just like, there's not a day of his life from here on out that will not be affected by Kobe and Gigi moving on.
Yeah. The other speech that I actually just caught it this morning. I believe it was Kobe's, I want to say it was his manager. But he spoke about how that Sunday that Kobe passed away, he was at church and felt his phone in his pocket, felt it vibrate, that a text message had come through, and he kept feeling these promptings to, like, he's like, normally, I'm in the middle of the church, and so I wouldn't have checked my phone, but I felt like I needed to check my phone. So he checks his phone and he sees it's a text from Kobe. And he says, well, we text all the time, and so normally I wouldn't have opened it during church and read it, but I felt this prompting to open it and read it. And Kobe was asking about if this guy knew of somebody in baseball, somebody that works kind of high up in baseball. And he's like, normally I would have read that and like I can respond later, and so I would have waited. But I felt this prompting, like I should have responded then. So he started texting during church and telling Kobe, yeah, I know some guys in baseball. And it turns out that Kobe was there's a family of 3 that was on the helicopter, to the parents and then their daughter who played basketball with Gigi. And they actually have another daughter who was not on the helicopter, but she is looking for a baseball internship. And so Kobe was trying to use his connections to get this young lady an internship within baseball. And so this guy was saying that, eventually the text from Kobe stopped coming, and he soon learned that the helicopter had gone down. But he was just saying how, like, his last conversation with Kobe was, it goes to show, like, that's how he lived his life. Kobe Bryant lived his life, was like he was trying to empower young girls to, live their dreams, and he was doing everything he can with his influence to help these young people. And I just thought that was such a beautiful picture.
Well, hearing Vanessa's words about him as a father, and then seeing all of the consistent clips of him with his daughters, just like being a girl dad myself. I mean, it was so hard to listen and to just think through all of that.
Yeah.
When we recorded, I believe it was episode 3 about Kairos and Kobe, one of the things that I wanted to say more of, but I also wanted to be sensitive to how things could be perceived, is just that, as we've said, when it comes to energy and emotion ships, in this culture, we tend to limit our thoughts about energy to what can be perceived or understood, versus energy is around us all of the time, and it is accessible and can be tapped into, and often leads us and influences us without being aware of it. And therefore, it's a mistake to think that you have to be able to be aware of it or be made known of it or interact with it in order to be influenced by it.
Yeah.
And I think more in ancient civilizations, they were aware of this and familiar with it. And that's where they would refer to, like, Mother Earth and the planet is telling me this. But I really do believe, when you look at the last, few days of Kobe's life, and I know it's greater than that, energetically, because he is energy and he is an eternal spirit, I believe that his energy knew he was not going to be on Earth that much longer, and was influenced by the energy around him to make decisions that needed to be made while they could be made in the physical realm. And, one of the thoughts that I had that Vanessa voiced yesterday in the memorial service is that God did not see it possible for Kobe and Gigi to be separated, and therefore he allowed them to come home together.
Yeah.
And it's just fascinating when thinking about that, that our time here on earth as an eternal spirit is so limited and so short that often we process situations like this through our limited perspective when, in this case, 41 or 13 years on earth is not even an actual fraction of what eternity will look like. And to see all of the influence that both of their life, right? I mean, just looking at how good she was already as a basketball player, and already stating on the record that she wanted to be an ambassador for women in sports. Like, the amount of influence that they have had in what all of us would say was too short of a time period. It's remarkable.
Yeah. Another girl that spoke at the memorial is a college basketball player who Kobe mentored, and she left the arena, Staples Center, and flew to wherever, I don't know, but she had a game, and she broke all of these records yesterday in her game, NCAA men and women's records, at her game, which was just so perfect, right?
Yeah.
Just to honor him in that way. And
well, and it's a simple way to show you that we as people live on, we outlive our breath, that our energy and what we put our time into outlives our breath.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why each and every day is important. And though we might not feel like we're our best or feel like we accomplished everything that we wanted to accomplish today, it still is about others. It's about people, and it's about being your best by giving your best and then letting go of the results, knowing that our energy often is not maximized or does not find its climax or influence until we're gone.
Yeah.
Right? And so our energy outlives our breath, and we see this in Kobe's situation.
Yeah.
I mean, just seeing all of those stories yesterday.
Yeah, you think about that, right? Like you say, oh man, I wish he could have heard all of this. Not that he did. I mean, but like that you could tell the stories of how a person influences you when the person is still here, but it's like that's just not how it works. Like that's just not that's not the order of things.
I will take on the risk of seeming crazy to those who listen to this.
Perfect.
I had this thought in the shower this morning, that exact thought, that the book of Hebrews says that we have a cloud of witnesses. We referred to the book To Heaven and Back, where a neurosurgeon has an out-of-body experience after she drowns kayaking with her husband in South America. And Mary Neal, I finally remembered her name, if you want to look the book up, she talks about ascending above her body and watching everything that's happening. And then she also talks about in her book being in heaven and being in the presence of light and being in the presence of joy, but not only being surrounded by people that she recognized, people like grandparents that had gone before her, but also having the ability to look down and see what was going on in earth, on earth. And so I'm having this thought this morning, like, there's no doubt in my mind that Kobe and Gigi had a front row seat and were watching all of these people talk about them.
Yeah.
And there is absolutely no sadness, no sorrow, no remorse, because in heaven, where there's the absence of darkness and the absence of evil and the absence of suffering, those things don't exist. I was also here's where I'll put myself out there and be misunderstood or judged by others. I was playing in that golf tournament, and just felt out of nowhere, out of absolutely nowhere, the presence of like my grandfather who got me into golf, laughing and looking down over me, like watching this all take place from above. And, you know, I have these little systems in my head for trying to decipher what is me and what is spiritual, like what is me and what is spirit or what is God. And one of the ways that I do that is by just seeing if there was a thought that preceded my awareness of a spiritual reality that could have led to that, versus it being spontaneous and organic. And there wasn't. And I got this strong prompting that I remember his laugh, which he was a person of responsibility, a person that was left on a doorstep for adoption. He made jokes, but he did not like really laugh that often. And I could hear his laugh and just, he used to, because he had 3 daughters, my mom being one of them, say that I was his boy. Right. And I heard those words, my boy, and heard his laugh. And I just looked up to acknowledge, like nobody was looking. And I just looked up to acknowledge, like, I feel like I know what's going on. Like I'm a part of this. I'm connected to eternity. Like I'm connected and I'm aware of this, which in my limited understanding feel like that would not only bring him joy, right? Because he would know that I know he's watching, which is exciting, you know, but that God would like be pleased with that I'm sensitive to spiritual realities enough to acknowledge that it doesn't have to be just physical. Like I can pick up on and respond to these promptings.
Yeah. So what would you say to somebody that like wants those experiences? Not like, obviously they need to be organic, but we talk ad nauseum here about awareness. But I know that's probably the biggest part of it.
Yeah, it's cultivating an awareness that it can happen. You know, sticking with sports, that tends to be our thing today. You know, when you watch a record that goes decades or centuries unbroken in sports, one person breaks it and within weeks, often somebody else breaks it. Why? Because the awareness that it can be broken has now entered into the biology of mankind. And that's what we know. That's what we talk about. Like the receptor that comes out of each and every one of our cells responds to our perception of our environment. When someone sees that Carl Lewis's record of 9.83 in the 100-meter dash can be broken, often you will see multiple people break and shatter that barrier because they have the awareness, and their awareness serves as faith that allows their biology to do things that it couldn't do before.
Sure.
And so often it's just really that reality that says, I believe this is possible. Yeah. And I really believe that it's the magic in Jesus' words where he says to them who believe all things are possible. Yeah. That was a spiritual statement, but more important than it being a spiritual statement, it's a biological reality.
You know, the thing that really stuck with me when we talked in that episode about Kobe's death is you said that Vanessa, because, you know, everybody's words about Vanessa are like, I can't imagine. Right. I cannot imagine. And you said that there is like a particular grace reserved for people in her position. And that has not left me. I have thought about that so many times. And I feel like I've started to experience, like, even when I'm at home by myself and my husband's working and I have both the kids and they're both sick, like, I feel like there's a particular grace for me when other people are like, how are you doing this? I think like, I don't know. Yeah. There's just like, I'm just doing it. I don't know how I'm doing it. But I've thought about that grace a lot. And I think there's something very comforting there. And I expect and hope that she is having experiences similar to what you had on the golf course with your grandpa.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, because of my role, I have been around a lot of people that have lost someone, right? I've been in a number of hospital rooms with individuals as they're saying their goodbyes, and I've been in the room with some of my loved ones. Actually, both my grandmother and great-grandmother, I was in the room when they took their last breath. And it is true that there's a grace available there for us to be in that moment and to be okay. In some of the other situations where young people went home to be with the Lord way earlier than anyone would say they're comfortable with, I cannot tell you how many signs were given to them in the preceding days, weeks, months, and years.
Really?
And people would say, well, people try to make a big deal about it and say that you're getting into dangerous territory talking about people in heaven giving signs. I don't think so at all, right? I mean, it's not something to worship or memorialize, but it's just God saying, hey, like, I know your frame. I know what it is to grieve and to lose someone. And so I'm going to allow this to happen, and God allows it to happen as a sign of mercy and grace for people to know, like, those people are not dead. They are eternal spirits, and they see and hear what's going on. And I mean, I can't think of all of them off the top of my head, but clear supernatural signs of people not being alone. I remember one story from someone that we went to church with that is a huge example. Not all of the examples are this clear. They're clear enough to be perceived as something out of the usual, right?
Okay.
They're at least that clear.
Yeah.
This particular situation, it was a husband and wife who lost a son in an automobile accident, pretty much right in front of them. They lived on a country road, and their son pulled out of their driveway and wasn't watching what he was doing, and someone hit him while they were out in the front yard, and he went on to be with the Lord. And again, the grief of watching it all happen,
right.
which, I've been through those situations with parents who were in the room when their child had an accident and went on to be with the Lord. It compounds things, right?
For sure.
Because you're there, you're seeing it all,
Yeah.
you're waiting for the ambulance, all of that stuff. And so the husband and the wife, of course, were having a very hard time, but the father particularly had a very close relationship with the son. They both played baseball. He was his son's coach for the longest time, and even in that moment for the traveling select team. And so one morning, he's sitting on his back porch, and it's early in the morning because he couldn't sleep, like 6 a.m. And he goes out there and covers up with a blanket, and it's just like a patio where it's screened in, and he sees a man walking through the backyard, and he's startled because this man is taller. He has a bigger frame, and he doesn't know what to do initially. He says that, I have this thought, maybe I should go inside because nobody should be out here at 6 a.m.,
right.
especially if they're moving toward me. And then his other thought was, I'm going to move toward him and see what's going on and show him that I'm not afraid. And so he stands up and he moves toward the man. He goes outside the patio or the screened-in porch and says, I'm sorry, may I help you? And the gentleman, I get emotional telling this story. It's been like 20 years and it still affects me. The gentleman who is the stranger in the backyard says, I just want to let you know that Michael, which was the son, knows how to worship God. And the father loses it.
Yeah, no kidding.
Right? Just like, how do you explain this? And he gets so excited that without saying anything, he turns around and runs inside to go get his wife. And once he gets in the screened-in porch and through the sliding door into the living room, he has this thought like, oh my gosh, I just turned my back on this guy. I need to invite him inside. And the moment he turns around, which has been about 3 to 4 seconds, the guy's gone.
Yeah.
Goes outside, runs around the house, up and down through the neighborhood, never finds him again.
I have chills all over my body right now. That is insane.
Yeah. And so again, it's an example where, it doesn't happen that way every time,
Yeah.
but just, examples where something that the son or daughter that passed on colored something, and now all of a sudden it's in a position that it wasn't before. Things like that just show you that there is something higher, there is something greater, that every single person was made in God's image and has eternity written on their heart. They know they were made for more.
Yeah.
And that's what motivates and pushes us forward. Like, we know that we were made for more.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's organized and structured religion that has gotten in the way of that, where we don't give people their time and space to make that decision for themselves, but instead, unfortunately, gravitate sometimes, in at least historically, into fear, and try to motivate people using fear to make decisions when God's got it as it is. Like, he's got it. And he uses people to help others find this light and love, but we don't have to take it into our own hands and our own strength as if he can't get things done himself.
Right. Such a relief.
The other thing that I was going to say is, you were talking about Kobe with his text to this coach about a baseball mentor or connection.
Yeah.
Kobe got it. And now that Kobe has passed on, you can see all of these videos coming out where when Kobe retired from basketball, he started using his influence to serve other people.
Yep.
There's a clip, I don't know if you've seen this, out in the area, Huntington Beach, that he's from. I'm very familiar. I have a really good friend out there. It, like the day of the accident, can get really foggy, and fog can set in on the highway. And so there's a clip on Instagram, and I think YouTube as well, where Kobe is behind someone at an intersection, and the person pulls out and gets hit. And Kobe gets out of the car in the fog and is directing traffic, helping people move using his influence.
Yeah.
Because think about it. Kobe Bryant walks up to your window
Right.
and says, "Hey, I need you to pull over here to the left, or we're going to get this out of the way." And everybody's like, "Okay."
Right. Sure. Of course.
But the text is an example that he understood greater than, you don't have to be a professional basketball player to get this. And you don't have to retire from whatever you're doing to get this. Influence is your opportunity. And the beautiful thing about it is, it doesn't matter if you feel like you're on the top of the mountain or the bottom of the mountain. Influence is your opportunity to get to where you want to go.
So what does that mean? It's easy for me to grasp top of the mountain people.
Sure.
And their influence.
Sure.
What about the bottom of the mountain
Well,
people?
yeah, for sure. But people on the top of the mountain don't have as much influence as people on the bottom of the mountain. The top of the mountain often is where people see your influence. The bottom of the mountain is where you earn your influence. And so there is no such thing as failure, because failure, to those who understand it, is only an opportunity to earn influence. We had a situation yesterday where a pipe backed up at the restaurant, a valve, a drain backed up and let water go everywhere.
Perfect.
And that was a Monday. We've been closed on Mondays. And so it needed to be cleaned up.
Yeah.
And we decided that we were going to have somebody come in and get as much as they could, but we would still need to desanitize the place and get it ready to open up Tuesday morning for influence.
Sanitize.
Sanitize, yeah,
You don't
sorry.
want to desanitize.
Desanitize. No, definitely not. Sanitize the area. And so last night at about 10:30 or 11 o'clock, I, being in the position of the owner, went in and helped do this because it's an opportunity for influence. Not going to get paid for it, not going to get recognized for it. Like, that's not the point. It is, how do you earn influence with those around you so that you can further what is going on in their life or what is going on in your life? Because with influence comes trust.
Mm-hmm.
And so Kobe would use his influence of being as good as he was as a basketball player to serve other people. He's sending that text out to find a contact, because if he reaches out to a coach who knows a coach, it's going to create an opportunity for that family.
Right.
And so what I tell people is, it doesn't matter where you're at, how much you're getting paid, how great you think your life is, or how poor you think your life is, your influence is your opportunity. And the crappier your life is, the richer the contrast is for you to be a person of influence, because you did not allow what you were up against or what you thought was unfair or what wasn't working out to stop you. Instead, you said, I'm going to take this and earn influence with others based on my work ethic, based on the time that I put in, based on my attitude, based on my willingness to keep my mouth shut and not vent or let my emotions go through my words.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, influence is the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And people with influence comes resources, period. Right? And so often we get so narrow-sighted that we pursue resources and lose all of our influence. I much rather have influence than resources, because influence can lead to resources.
You're talking about money. You're talking about money?
I mean, it's not just money. It's how about relationships? How about friendships? How about having someone that'll make a call for you and get you in somewhere?
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Like,
stuff like that.
yeah, like, resources are not limited to money, but it includes it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have found that if you will double down on your opportunities to earn influence with everyone, not just the people that you think can serve you, it will take you a long way.
Yeah.
My wife and I were talking about this recently. We were in an organization that we own, and I do my best when I'm in that environment to serve others, to include the employees that get a paycheck ultimately from me.
Mm-hmm.
And because I go out of my way to not only show myself to be equal with them, but to get underneath them and serve them, I was telling her, one of them was walking by me with a guest as I was helping another guest. And they were saying, there's our owner. And they said some very nice words about me. And I just said to my wife, like, it's ironic that you work to serve your employees and they talk about how great you are. But a lot of us get that backwards, and we think that because we have the title of owner or the responsibility stops with us, that those employees exist to serve us. And when we have that mentality, they end up hating us and not wanting to work for us.
Yeah.
And so that's
Absolutely.
why I say, like, influence is your opportunity, and you don't have to have a title. You don't have to have a certain degree or a certain amount of money in the bank account or drive a certain car to have influence. And that's why there's a proverb that talks about the servant can become greater than the son. And it was talking about, this is 6,000 years old, this proverb. And the idea behind it is, often as a servant, if you will manage your attitude and serve without expecting anything in return, you can go further and around or elevate to a position that sons who inherited it and did not have to work for it often can't get to. That there are situations, because of a servant-minded attitude, where servants can surpass sons or daughters that just had an inheritance coming. Right? Because think about it. The king has a servant that demonstrates, I am here to serve you and to meet your needs.
Mm-hmm.
That is something that they have an opportunity to live into that sometimes children, because of their proximity, do not live into, and therefore do not get the opportunities to run the business or inherit the business, because they never demonstrated that they have the character or the understanding to receive or inherit that responsibility.
Right.
And so in that case, influence is your opportunity.
Yeah. Would you say, what about people listening who maybe are in like a really toxic work environment or unhealthy environment, I mean, you still move ahead with serving.
Well, I think so. I mean, that's what really separates the sheep from the goats, right? Like, and I'm referring to the hip goat, right? The greatest of all time.
Okay. Really glad that you said that.
Sheep from the goats.
I did not understand that.
Often when we look back on a person's life, one of the things that I have recognized is what it took to stop that person. And the stories that we like the most, that have the most influence, are those where no matter what, people just did not quit. Now, there are toxic and abusive situations that you have to be aware of and make sure that your health and safety is not being compromised in a detrimental way. But that being said, a lot of the people that we respect and a lot of the stories that last and stand the test of time are situations where people stayed in difficult situations. Sometimes they were forced to. They couldn't get out. And they maintained the right attitude, and in doing so earned influence. And often it's the influence that gets you out of the mess that you're in. So, you think of the Bible story of Joseph. On 2 occasions, he was treated unfairly. Both times, his attitude earned him influence with an influencer. In Joseph's case, it was the keeper of the prison, that his attitude for being thrown in there unjustly got him influence and got him out. And then also the king's cupbearer and baker were in there, and they noticed something Joseph about that was different. And when the time came, they said something to the king that got Joseph out of prison, who was put there unfairly. Why? Because Joseph had influence with them. How did he get it? He took an unfair situation that was toxic and hard, maintained his attitude, and therefore earned influence. And they spread that influence when the timing was right, or when they had the opportunity.
So in maintaining your attitude, do you ever just need to vent? So and maybe this isn't then maintaining the right attitude, where sometimes I feel like if I'm serving, I'm trying to build my influence, I'm doing all of, working overtime, doing all of these things. Sometimes I just need to say out loud to someone like, this is really hard, or this really sucks, or this isn't fair.
Sure, yeah.
And I don't know if that then means that I don't have the right attitude. Well, I try to do it to the right people, mainly my husband.
Yeah,
but.
And that's what it comes back to. Like, you and I vent to one another about certain situations, but we also understand one another, and we see, I believe, one another's work ethic. And so it's one thing to vent while I'm right in the middle of the situation and something has happened that's unfair. It's another thing to put myself in trusted environments with people typically that are disconnected from that situation or that understand that situation, and to say, man, this is driving me crazy. Often, and I think this is true because from a working standpoint, you and I have a work relationship where you work with me, right? We could say that you work for me, that your paycheck comes from me.
That is accurate.
That being said, I earn influence with you by expressing my frustrations and my weaknesses and my fears, right? So sometimes it's not about being strong and keeping your mouth shut. Sometimes you earn influence by the tone of your voice and the way you say things to people that aren't necessarily above you or beside you, but even people that are quote unquote on the authoritative chain below you. How you interact with them, you can earn influence. And so never waste an opportunity to earn trust and influence, because influence is your opportunity. And Kobe got it.
Yeah, for sure. There's a willingness too that I'm trying to learn, and I see obviously in your life as the owner of these different businesses. I think Jesus did this really well too. A willingness to be interrupted, to have your day kind of sidetracked for the greater good. And for someone like me who loves ticking off things on a to-do list, that can be really difficult. But
Well, and Jesus never wasted the opportunity to make an impact in a person's life. He had his agenda, but he was willing to be interrupted, because often the things that interrupt your agenda need to interrupt your agenda.
yeah.
I remember a situation this past summer where I was late, and I don't like being late, but I was late to meet with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I was walking from table 33 up here, which is about 2 blocks.
Yep.
And I'm in my head looking at my feet as I walk, thinking about the conversation I just had and the conversation I'm getting ready to have with you. And someone that I have an acquaintance with, I almost run into them on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And they were crying. I look at them, and there are tears running down her face. And she has her toddlers, one by each hand. And I said, I called her by name, and I said, what's happening? What's going on? Are you okay? And she said, no, my attorney just got outmaneuvered, and my children's father is taking them. And you would have to understand, our audience would have to understand the situation.
Yeah.
The father was not in a healthy position,
Right.
For multiple reasons, to be taking these children. And I had an opportunity in that moment to either do something that was within my power to do, or to continue on with my agenda.
Yeah.
And it was an easy decision, right? Like, I walked back with her, and we went and saw her attorney together and made a decision together as to what she could and what she had to do and what she did not have to do. And she ended up not having to give her children over that day, and we helped her get better counsel that turned out to make it overall a healthier situation for those children.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that is taking your influence and being willing to use it, even when it's not comfortable or convenient.
Yeah. That's good.
And so that's kind of the thing that's built into influence, is that the more you start understanding that influence is your opportunity, the more you see opportunities for influence. And again, Kobe got this.
Yeah.
And from everything that we see, this is how he was spending a lot of these days now that he was not involved in basketball.
Yep.
That's a wrap.
Good.
Emotion Chips. Episode 9. 9? 10.
Oh, I thought it was 8.
Definitely not 8.
Okay.
We will see you next time here on Emotion Chips, where we talk about the real reason everything happens for a reason.